You think you know Pixar? Well, here's some things you may not have known about the company that revolutionized 3D animation.
Hey, Ham, look, I'm Picasso.
I don't get it.
You uncultured swine.
Most of the core team at Pixar did not start their careers working together at Pixar. Instead, they worked together at the New York Institute of Technology Computer Graphics Lab, founded by Alexander Shore. These included Pixar co-founders Alvy Ray Smith, Ralph Guggenheim, and Ed Catmull. Many of the employees at the Computer Graphics Lab were later approached by filmmaker George Lucas, who offered them all jobs at his company, Lucasfilm. To make it appear as if Lucas hadn't scalped the animators, many of them worked random jobs for a year before officially beginning work at Lucasfilm's graphics group, which would later be spun off into the independent Pixar Animation. Atari founder and Pong creator Nolan Bushnell also unintentionally had a hand in shaping Pixar. In 1983, Bushnell founded Cadaverscope, a 3D computer animation company, as a subsidiary of his Chuck E. Cheese brand of pizzeria restaurants. However, after the video game crash of 1983, Bushnell was forced to sell off several of his assets to keep his companies afloat. Cadaverscope was sold to Lucasfilm, and their assets were integrated into what would become Pixar.
And there seems to be no sign of intelligent life anywhere.
Hello?
Oh, yeah.
Ah! Whoa! Hey, whoa. Did I frighten you? Didn't mean to. Sorry. Howdy. My name is Woody, and this is Andy's room.
A key figure at Pixar, John Lasseter actually worked at Disney long before the House of Mouse had any sort of relationship with Pixar. He wanted to push the envelope and start creating 3D animated films at Disney's animation studios, but the company was uninterested and eventually let him go after failing to see any benefit of pioneering 3D animation. Lasseter had several contacts in the computer graphics community and briefly talked with Ed Catmull at a graphics convention in late 1983. When Catmull told Alvy Ray Smith that Lasseter was no longer working at Disney, Smith told him to hire Lasseter immediately. Steve Jobs invested nearly $5 million into Pixar and its technology when they spun off into an independent company, which allowed him to become the chairman of the company's board of directors. When Pixar was later sold to the Walt Disney Company, Jobs ended up becoming the largest single shareholder of Disney stock, owning roughly 7% of the company. His shares in Disney were then estimated to be worth around $3 billion.
Shut up! You rats with wings!
This bloke's been looking for his boy Nemo.
Nemo?
He was taken off the reef by divers, and this...
They're taking you, Harvey!
Mine?
Animation wasn't originally the main focus of the independent Pixar. Instead, they tried to sell the Pixar Image Computer, a powerful machine capable of rendering 3D animation. The Image Computer did not sell well, however. Lasseter and a few other employees had been developing 3D animations for various advertisements, which ended up overtaking the sale of the Image Computer as Pixar's main business. In 1991, Pixar basically ended its hardware business and struck a deal with Walt Disney Animation Studios to produce a fully 3D animated film for around $30 million. This movie became Toy Story, the first feature-length film animated entirely in a computer. Toy Story was a big hit and grossed more than $373 million during its run in theaters.
Oh, finally. Ugh. Hey, who's got my hat?
Look, I'm Woody. Howdy, howdy, howdy.
Give me that.
Despite a string of several incredibly successful films and their partnership with the Mouse House, behind the scenes, Disney and Pixar had several disagreements. Toy Story 2 was originally meant to be a direct-to-DVD film and not count toward Pixar's multi-picture deal with Disney. However, when Disney later upgraded the film to a theatrical release, they refused to count it toward the multi-picture deal, which angered the management of Pixar. Steve Jobs butted heads several times with Disney CEO Michael Eisner, which eventually resulted in negotiation between their companies collapsing in 2004. Negotiations between the two companies resumed in 2005 after Eisner left Disney. However, things were still tenuous between them, and an entirely new distribution contract had to be negotiated for 2007's Ratatouille while a more final deal could be ironed out. In this deal, Ratatouille would remain an entirely Pixar-owned property, with Disney only collecting a distribution fee. Eventually, Disney agreed to completely buy Pixar. As part of this deal, Pixar's executive vice president, John Lasseter, was ironically made chief creative officer of both Pixar and Walt Disney Animation Studios, the company that fired him nearly 2 decades earlier for trying to pursue 3D animation. And here's a bonus one. John Lasseter is good friends with fellow animator Hayao Miyazaki, one of the lead creative forces behind Studio Ghibli in Japan. This has resulted in Lasseter helping to localize several of Studio Ghibli's films in the West with Disney, and the inclusion of a stuffed version of one of Miyazaki's most famous creations, the titular Totoro from My Neighbor Totoro, as a cameo in Toy Story 3.
I think you've had enough tea for today. Let's get you out of here, Buzz.
Don't you get it? You see the hat? I am Mrs. Nesbit.
Snap out of it, Buzz!
That's it for this episode of You Think You Know Movies. Make sure to subscribe, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and get the latest movie and TV news on ScreenCrush.com.